The unseen art of understanding people. Life is a constant stream of interactions. Whether you're sitting in a meeting room, walking through a bustling street, or sharing an intimate conversation with a close friend, you're always surrounded by people, each one with their unique thoughts, intentions, and desires. At the surface, human behavior often appears straightforward, driven by simple motives like ambition, love, or need. But if you could take a step deeper, if you could learn to truly observe and decode the subtle cues in behavior, tone, and emotion, you'd begin to see an entirely different world, a world that reveals not just what people do, but why they do it. This ability to understand people on a deeper level is not some unattainable, magical gift. It is a skill, one rooted in observation, empathy, and curiosity. In today's fast-paced world, where conversations are rushed, and emotions are often masked, few things are more valuable than the ability to read between the lines. And by mastering this skill, you'll find that every interaction you have, whether in personal relationships, business, or casual encounters, becomes richer, more meaningful, and more insightful. The idea of reading people goes beyond surface-level judgments and preconceived notions. It requires you to dig deeper, to step outside of your own biases, and to truly listen, not just to the words someone says, but to how they say them, how they behave, and how they react when no one is watching. This approach is not only useful for understanding others, it also offers a mirror for self-reflection, allowing you to see yourself more clearly as you navigate relationships, decisions, and personal growth. In this expanded exploration, we will delve into 6 critical signs that reveal much more about people than they may ever intend to share. These signs offer a roadmap to understanding human behavior, helping you to connect with others on a profound level. With the power of these insights, you will never look at human interaction the same way again. Let's begin. 1. The "tell me more" technique. Opening the door to authenticity. Have you ever been in a conversation where it felt like the other person was simply waiting for their turn to speak? Or perhaps you found yourself in a heated debate, eager to prove your point, only to realize that the other party wasn't really listening at all? These are common experiences in modern communication, where true listening has become a rare commodity. But there's a technique that, when used correctly, can transform even the most superficial conversation into a gateway to someone's inner world. The "tell me more" technique. At first glance, this technique may seem deceptively simple. When someone is speaking passionately about a topic, whether it's a debate over pizza toppings or a deeply personal issue, you refrain from interrupting or offering your opinion. Instead, you say 3 small words: "Tell me more." This simple invitation does something remarkable. It shifts the focus away from your own thoughts and opinions and opens the floor for the other person to explore their feelings, memories, and motivations more freely. In those moments, they lower their defenses, often without even realizing it, and what follows can be nothing short of enlightening. The first time I employed this technique, I was having a light-hearted argument with a friend about pineapple on pizza. Like most people, I was prepared to dive into a back-and-forth exchange of points and counterpoints. But instead, something in me paused. Instead of pushing my view, I simply said, "Tell me more." What came next wasn't just a defense of their food preferences, it was a journey into their childhood memories, a nostalgic recounting of family dinners, and even a story about why they had a particular aversion to pineapple as a child. Suddenly, the conversation had shifted from trivial to profound. From a superficial debate to a revealing insight into my friend's upbringing and experiences. Why is this technique so powerful? It works because when people feel truly heard, they let their guard down. They stop feeling the need to defend themselves or their opinions and, instead, begin to share more openly. This is the point where their real motivations, insecurities, hopes, and fears come to the surface. In many ways, it's a form of therapy. By simply asking someone to explain themselves further, without judgment, you create a safe space for them to explore thoughts and feelings they might not otherwise reveal. Over the years, I've found this technique to be effective in various settings, whether it's in business meetings, friendships, or even delicate negotiations. I've watched as people, who initially seemed reserved or evasive, opened up simply because I asked them to tell me more. In one instance, during a business negotiation, I refrained from pushing my agenda and instead used the technique. By the end of the conversation, the other party had practically laid out their entire strategy, explaining their needs, concerns, and even their weaknesses. It was a masterclass in human interaction, and all I had to do was listen. But the "tell me more" technique is not just about gaining more information or winning an argument. At its core, it's about forging a deeper connection with the person you're speaking to. It forces you to put aside your own ego, to stop thinking about what you'll say next, and to focus entirely on the other person's perspective. This simple act of genuine curiosity can change the entire dynamic of a conversation, building trust and understanding that might not otherwise have been possible. From a Stoic perspective, this technique reflects one of the core teachings of the philosophy: empathy without attachment. You're not using the technique to manipulate or control the conversation. You're merely observing, understanding, and remaining calm. It's a way of seeing people for who they really are, not who they pretend to be, and allowing them the space to reveal their true selves. The next time you find yourself in a conversation, whether it's a casual chat, a negotiation, or even a heated debate, try using the "tell me more" technique. You'll be amazed at how much deeper the conversation goes, how much more people reveal, and how easy it becomes to truly understand them without ever having to push. And beyond just winning a conversation, you'll come to see that this approach builds real human connections grounded in respect and genuine curiosity. 2. How they treat people in lesser positions. A glimpse into true character. Human behavior is often shaped by external factors: the need for approval, the desire to impress, or the fear of judgment. But if you want to know who someone truly is, look at how they treat people they believe are beneath them. It's in these interactions, where there's no social pressure to be kind or polite, that a person's real character shines through. This principle can be uncomfortable to confront because it reveals a harsh truth about human nature. Many people are only kind when there's something to gain. Whether it's in a professional setting, a social gathering, or even a casual interaction at a restaurant, how someone treats those in lower positions, waiters, cashiers, junior colleagues, speaks volumes about their integrity. I once worked with someone who, on the surface, appeared to be the nicest person. They were always respectful, always charming, and always seemed to have a kind word for everyone, at least when it mattered. But one day, we went out to lunch, and I saw a different side of them. The moment we sat down, they started barking orders at the waiter, treating them as if they were invisible or, worse, beneath their notice. It was jarring to see how quickly they shifted from warm and friendly to dismissive and arrogant. And it made me realize that their kindness was conditional. This was not a one-time slip. but a reflection of their true character. People show their real nature when they think no one important is watching. If they're dismissive of the waiter, they'll be dismissive of anyone they believe can't fight back. If they're rude to a junior colleague, that arrogance will likely surface in other areas of their life. 2. The person who is kind to you but rude to others isn't genuinely kind, they're calculating. The truth is, when there's no social expectation to be polite, and someone knows they can get away with treating others poorly, their true personality emerges. This is where the Stoic philosophy once again provides guidance. Stoicism teaches us to observe human behavior objectively, without letting our emotions cloud our judgment. In doing so, we can see that the way someone treats others, particularly those in lesser positions, reveals far more about their character than their words or public persona ever could. Think about the last time you observed someone in a position of power interacting with someone who had less power. Were they respectful? Or were they dismissive? Did they treat the other person as an equal? Or did they belittle them? These interactions offer a glimpse into the person's values, their sense of empathy, and, ultimately, their sense of self-worth. People who are secure in themselves don't need to put others down to feel important. They respect everyone, regardless of status, because they see value in all human beings. On the other hand, those who are cruel or dismissive toward others are often projecting their own insecurities. They try to elevate themselves by stepping on those they deem weaker. This principle has become a kind of silent test for me. When I meet someone new, whether it's a potential business partner, a new friend, or even a romantic interest, I pay close attention to how they treat those in lesser positions. Do they show respect to the janitor? Do they say thank you to the bus driver? Do they offer kindness to a stranger, even when there's no one around to see it? If the answer is yes, then that's someone worth knowing. But if they're unnecessarily harsh, dismissive, or rude, that's a red flag that can't be ignored. And here's where it gets even deeper. How we treat others is a reflection of how we see ourselves. Those who are secure in themselves don't need to assert their dominance or superiority over others. They understand that kindness and respect are not signs of weakness but of strength. But those who are arrogant or cruel to those they perceive as beneath them are often struggling with their own insecurities, using their power to mask their inner fears. So, if you want to truly understand someone, don't be fooled by how they treat people they need to impress. Instead, pay attention to how they treat those with nothing to offer. It's the surest way to see beyond the mask into the heart of who they really are. 3. Their past is the key to their present, the unseen echoes that shape behavior. We often hear that the past is behind us, that we should let it go and move on. But the truth is, the past is never really gone. It lingers in the background, shaping our thoughts, our decisions, and our behaviors in ways we might not even realize. If you want to understand someone on a deeper level, you need to look at their past, not just the events they've experienced, but how those experiences have left their mark on them. This can be a difficult concept to accept because it suggests that people don't just move on from their past experiences, they carry them with them. The past, in many ways, becomes the blueprint for how we act in the present. Our experiences, traumas, victories, and relationships all play a role in influencing how we think, behave, and even treat others in the present moment. Take, for example, a friend of mine who always seemed on edge. No matter the situation, they were overly defensive, quick to anger, and constantly cautious in relationships. At first, I thought it was just part of their personality. But as I got to know them better, I learned more about their past. They had been deeply betrayed by people they trusted, had experienced financial hardship, and had grown up in an environment where they constantly had to prove themselves. Suddenly, their behavior made sense. Their defensiveness wasn't random. It was a direct result of the emotional scars they carried from their past. They were acting out of a need to protect themselves from being hurt again. And this is a key insight. The way people behave in the present is often a reaction to the unresolved parts of their past. When someone grows up feeling neglected, they may crave constant attention as an adult. If someone has been betrayed in a past relationship, they may now find it difficult to trust others. Even in new relationships, the dots begin to connect when you understand that their present actions are echoes of their past experiences. But the goal here isn't to excuse or justify someone's behavior based on their past. It's to understand that they're not always acting out of the present moment. They're reacting to the unresolved emotions and patterns from their history. By seeing this, you can approach them with more empathy, while also protecting yourself from getting drawn into their cycles of unresolved issues. I've seen this play out in romantic relationships too. You ever date someone who seems perfectly fine at first, but then certain patterns start emerging? Maybe they're overly jealous, or they struggle with commitment. 9 times out of 10, if you dig deep enough, you'll find that their past relationships have left wounds they haven't fully healed from. Their fear of being hurt again drives their behavior in the present, even if they're not fully aware of it. But here's where it gets even more profound. By understanding someone's past, you might be able to help them break free from the cycles they're stuck in. If you can gently point out the patterns they're repeating, you might help them become more self-aware, enabling them to confront the issues they've been avoiding for years. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of self-reflection and improvement. And sometimes, understanding someone's past allows you to guide them toward bettering themselves. It's easy to judge people based on how they act right now. But the past is the key to unlocking the reasons behind those actions. When you start seeing people's behaviors as responses to their history, you can approach them with more compassion, while also maintaining healthy boundaries for yourself. In short, the past is always present. To truly understand someone, you have to see the full picture, not just the chapter they're currently living. 4. Sudden changes in tone signal lies or hesitation. When the voice reveals the truth. Have you ever been in a conversation where something just didn't feel right? You couldn't quite put your finger on it, but a subtle shift in the other person's tone made you feel uneasy. That feeling wasn't just in your head. One of the most telling signs that someone is lying, uncertain, or hiding something is a sudden change in their tone of voice. Our voices, much like our body language, often reveal the truth, even when our words don't. Most of us think we're pretty good at hiding our emotions, especially when we're trying to deceive or cover something up. But what many people don't realize is that their voices betray them. When someone is speaking with confidence and truth, their tone is usually steady. Their words flow naturally, and there's a rhythm to their speech that feels genuine. But when someone is lying or feels uncertain about what they're saying, that natural flow is disrupted. The change might be subtle, a slight stutter, a shift in pitch, or an unusually long pause, or it could be dramatic, like a sudden drop in energy or a complete change in the pace of their speech. I once worked with a colleague who was a master of smooth talking. He was charming, articulate, and always seemed to know exactly what to say. But one day, during a conversation about a project deadline, something changed. His usually confident, upbeat tone dropped, and his words came out slower and more hesitant. It was a small shift, but I immediately sensed that something was off. Sure enough, it turned out that he hadn't made any progress on the project and was trying to cover it up. That shift in tone was the giveaway. Here's why this happens. When people lie or feel uncomfortable with what they're saying, their mind and body go into conflict. The brain is trying to maintain the lie or manage the uncertainty. But the body, specifically the voice, can't help but reflect the internal stress. It's as if the subconscious is throwing up red flags, hoping someone will notice. This often manifests in subtle ways: a slight crack in the voice, a sudden shift in pitch, or a pause that lasts just a bit too long. These vocal cues are signs of discomfort, and they're often a subconscious attempt to relieve the tension created by the lie or hesitation. Think back to the last time you caught someone in a lie. Did they suddenly get quieter or start speaking faster? Did their tone take on a forced cheerfulness, as if they were trying too hard to sound normal? These are classic signs of someone trying to hide the truth. The shift in tone, however small, is a subconscious signal that something isn't right. But tone changes aren't just about catching lies. They also signal hesitation, doubt, or uncertainty. I once had a friend who would get really enthusiastic about plans we made. But the moment I suggested something she wasn't fully on board with, her tone would shift instantly. She'd go from excited to monotone, like someone had flipped a switch. That change in tone was always my clue that she wasn't really into the plan, even if her words said otherwise. This phenomenon happens all the time in relationships, business deals, and even casual conversations. It's that moment when someone's energy suddenly drops, or their voice takes on a different quality that doesn't quite match their words. And it's in those moments that you need to start paying attention, not just to what they're saying, but to how they're saying it. But here's the deeper lesson. People don't always lie just to deceive others. Sometimes they lie to deceive themselves. When someone's tone changes, it's not always because they're trying to manipulate you. It's often because they're uncomfortable with the lie they're telling themselves. They're wrestling with the internal conflict between what they want to believe and what they know to be true. And that discomfort seeps into their voice. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, and this is a prime example of how that observational power can be applied. By paying attention to the subtle shifts in someone's tone, you can gain a clearer picture of their internal struggle. And it's worth noting that we often do this to ourselves. How many times have you said something you didn't fully believe, only to notice your own voice falter? Your tone becomes the mirror of your inner doubt, revealing the gap between your thoughts and your words. This is why Stoicism emphasizes the importance of aligning your thoughts, words, and actions when they're not in harmony. It shows, often in ways you can't control. So, the next time you're in a conversation and you notice someone's tone shift unexpectedly, whether it's a sudden drop in energy, an awkward pause, or a pitch change, don't ignore it. Ask yourself, what are they holding back? What are they uncomfortable with? It might not be a full-on lie, but there's a good chance they're not telling you the whole truth. Their voice is their tell, and if you listen closely, you'll hear it every time. 5. The most honest moments are when they think no one's watching. Unmasking the truth. If you really want to know who someone is, don't watch them when they're in the spotlight. Watch them when they think no one is paying attention. These are the moments when people drop the masks they wear for society, the personas they craft to fit in or get ahead, and reveal their true nature. It's a controversial truth because most of us would like to believe that who we are in public is the same as who we are in private. But the reality is that people often behave very differently when they think no one's looking. In today's world, we are constantly performing. Social media encourages us to curate perfect versions of ourselves. And in public, we often act in ways that align with societal expectations. But it's in those unguarded moments, when people think they're off stage, that their real character comes through. I remember working with a manager who was always the picture of professionalism when the boss was around. She would make polite small talk, maintain a calm demeanor, and never raise her voice. But the moment our higher-ups left the office, it was like she transformed into a completely different person. She would snap at the team, make condescending remarks, and treat people with zero respect. It was a jarring shift, and it taught me a valuable lesson. The person someone is when they don't think they're being watched is often their most authentic self. When people are in the spotlight, they're hyper-aware of how they're being perceived. They act in ways they believe will earn approval or avoid conflict. But the second they feel they're out of view, the filters drop. You see this in small moments. How they react when they think no one will notice. How they treat people who can't offer them anything. Or how they behave when they believe they won't be held accountable. It's in these seemingly insignificant interactions that their true self is revealed. This applies to every aspect of life, from relationships to business to everyday encounters. Take romantic relationships, for example. At the beginning of a relationship, both parties are usually on their best behavior, trying to impress one another. But if you really want to know who someone is, observe them during the quiet moments, the ones where they're not actively trying to impress you. How do they treat the waitress when you're out to dinner? What are they like when they're stressed? Or when they think you're not paying attention? Do they still show kindness, patience, and respect? Or do they let their guard down and reveal something less flattering? I've seen this play out in social settings as well. You might have a friend who's the life of the party when everyone's watching, always cracking jokes and being the center of attention. But when they think no one's noticing, they might act aloof, selfish, or dismissive. Their true character comes through not in the big, public moments but in the small, hidden ones. This is where the Stoic perspective becomes particularly valuable. As a Stoic, you are trained to observe life objectively, without judgment. People will often reveal their true nature when they think they're off stage. And it's in these moments that you can truly understand them. Stoicism teaches us that virtue is not about how we act when people are watching, but how we behave when no one is. The person who remains kind, patient, and respectful even when there's no one around to applaud them, that's someone who lives in alignment with their values. But the reality is that many people aren't like that. They compartmentalize their public and private selves, acting in ways that serve their image in public while letting their less appealing traits surface in private. I once had a colleague who was incredibly supportive and warm whenever we were in a group meeting. He always had something positive to say and would go out of his way to show support. But when we were alone, his demeanor completely shifted. He became short, dismissive, and uninterested in helping unless it directly benefited him. That's when I realized his public persona was a facade. The most honest moments aren't when someone is under the spotlight. They're when they think no one's watching, whether they're acting with kindness or cruelty. It's these unguarded moments that show the truth. And this is where you gain real insight into who they are. If someone can only be good when others are watching, it's not real goodness, it's performance. And here's the deeper Stoic message. True character is who you are in the shadows, not in the spotlight. As Stoicism teaches, we must aim to live in alignment with our values at all times, regardless of who's watching. whether the room is full or empty. A Stoic's actions are consistent because they come from within, not from the need for external validation. When you observe others in their unguarded moments, you'll not only see their truth but also remind yourself of the importance of living authentically, even when no one else is around. So, the next time you want to truly understand someone, don't focus on their grand gestures or public persona. Instead, pay attention to what they do when the spotlight is off. That's when you'll find their real character. And that's where the truth lives. 6. Emotional reactions reveal priorities, the unfiltered window into what matters most. Emotions are often seen as something to control, something we can hide or manage when necessary. But the truth is, no matter how much we try to mask our emotions, they have a way of bubbling to the surface, especially when something important to us is at stake. If you really want to understand what matters most to someone, look at how they react emotionally in different situations. Their strongest emotional reactions, whether anger, joy, frustration, or excitement, are like unfiltered windows into their soul, revealing their deepest values, priorities, and fears. This idea may seem uncomfortable because it suggests that we are not always in control of our emotions. While we might like to think that we can hide what we really care about, the reality is that our emotions often give us away. When someone reacts strongly, whether with an outburst of anger or a burst of excitement, it's usually because the issue at hand touches on something that deeply matters to them. I remember working with a colleague who was usually calm and composed, the type of person who rarely showed strong emotion. But one day, during a routine meeting, someone suggested a small change to one of his projects, and he suddenly exploded with frustration. At first, the outburst seemed out of place. After all, the proposed change was minor, and not something you would expect to trigger such a strong reaction. But as I thought about it more, I realized that his emotional response wasn't about the change itself. It was about what the project meant to him. This project wasn't just another work task, it was his passion, his pride. His emotional reaction revealed just how deeply he cared about it, even though he had never explicitly said so before. This is the key lesson when it comes to emotional reactions. People don't always tell you what matters most to them in words, but their emotions speak louder than anything they could say. When someone reacts emotionally, they are revealing their priorities, whether they intend to or not. The boss who reacts angrily when you question his decision, that's not just about protecting his authority. It's because his sense of self-worth is tied to always being right. The friend who gets defensive when you point out a small flaw in their work, it's likely because their identity is tied to being seen as competent or successful. The excitement someone shows when they receive praise for a job well done? That's because recognition is one of their top priorities, even if they'd never admit it outright. Paying attention to someone's emotional reactions gives you a clear roadmap to their values, without them ever having to spell it out. People's strongest emotional reactions, whether positive or negative, reveal their deepest priorities. They might act cool, detached, or indifferent in most situations. But when something they care about is threatened, challenged, or even acknowledged, their emotions flare up. It's important to note that this isn't just limited to negative emotions like anger or frustration. Positive emotions can be just as revealing. When someone lights up with joy or excitement, it's because they're talking about something that truly matters to them. The friend who can't stop talking about their new side hustle, it's because that project is more than just a hobby to them, it's a passion. The partner who gets animated when discussing future travel plans, It's because creating shared experiences is one of their core values. I've seen this principle play out countless times in relationships. Take dating, for example. If you're dating someone and they get disproportionately upset when plans fall through, that's a sign that spending time together is incredibly important to them. If they light up whenever you talk about the future, whether it's a trip, an event, or a new experience, it means that building a future together is a priority for them. Emotions are always tied to values. And paying attention to these emotional cues allows you to understand someone's priorities in a way that words often can't. Let's consider another example. Imagine a casual comment is made about someone's punctuality. Instead of a calm acknowledgement, they react with defensiveness or agitation. Their emotional outburst isn't just about the punctuality. It's because reliability and the appearance of being responsible are central to how they see themselves. When you touch on something that challenges their self-image, their emotions rise to the surface, revealing just how important that value is to them. From a Stoic perspective, this principle is especially enlightening. Stoicism teaches us to observe human behavior with an objective eye. And emotions are one of the most telling aspects of behavior. When someone's emotions flare up, it's because something they value is at stake. Understanding this can help you navigate your interactions with others more skillfully. Building stronger relationships rooted in mutual respect and empathy. But here's the deeper Stoic lesson. Your own emotional reactions reveal your priorities. 2. When you find yourself reacting strongly to something, take a moment to reflect on why. Are you getting angry because someone questioned your integrity? Or are you just upset that your reputation is being challenged? Are you frustrated because a project was delayed? Or is your anger really tied to the fact that you take pride in meeting deadlines and being reliable? Stoicism teaches us that by understanding our own emotional reactions, we can gain greater control over them. We can recognize when our emotions are tied to values that truly matter and when they're simply a reflection of our ego or insecurities. This level of self-awareness not only helps us manage our own emotions more effectively but also allows us to engage with others from a place of empathy and understanding. So, the next time you find yourself in a conversation or a situation where emotions are running high, take a step back and observe. What is the person really reacting to? What value or priority is at the core of their emotional response? By paying attention to these emotional signals, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the people around you, and perhaps, a clearer sense of your own priorities as well. The ability to read people is not about manipulation or gaining an advantage over others. It's about building deeper, more meaningful connections by understanding the subtle signals people give off, their emotions, body language, tone, and reactions. This skill allows you to see beyond the surface, to truly understand the motivations, fears, and priorities that drive people's behavior. And as you develop this ability, you'll find that your relationships, both personal and professional, become richer, more authentic, and more fulfilling. But the greatest power of this skill isn't just in understanding others. It's in understanding yourself. The more you observe others, the more you'll learn about your own triggers, values, and emotional reactions. Stoicism teaches us to live in alignment with our principles. And part of that journey is self-awareness, knowing what drives you, what matters most, and how to navigate the world with a calm, clear mind. When you approach life with this level of awareness, you not only gain clarity in your relationships, but you also cultivate a deeper sense of empathy and connection. You'll start to see people not just for who they appear to be, but for who they truly are. And in turn, you'll see yourself more clearly. 2. This is the true power of reading people. It's not about outsmarting them or gaining control, it's about understanding them on a deeper level. Connecting with them authentically, and using that insight to grow as a person. When you can see past the surface, beyond the words and actions, to the real, unspoken truths of the people around you, you unlock a new level of awareness that transforms not only your relationships but also your own sense of self. So, as you move through life, whether you're in a heated debate, a business negotiation, or a quiet conversation with a friend, remember these 6 signs. Listen closely to the tone of their voice. Pay attention to how they treat those around them. Observe their emotional reactions, and notice how they behave when no one is watching. And as you do, you'll find that you're not just reading them, you're learning about yourself. 2. By using these insights not for manipulation, but for wisdom, empathy, and connection, you'll navigate life with a clearer sense of purpose, stronger relationships, and a deeper understanding of what it truly means to connect with others.